And so you moved to Canada, and now Canada is a socialist communist state now, right? Country now, right?
100%, Jesse. What's happening in Canada is absolutely insane. I have been arrested already so many times for simply feeding the poor, preaching the gospel. I was arrested for illegal distribution of printed material. I mean, it's just like a repetition of history. When I give away Bibles and gospel tracts, the government said that's illegal. They told me that the name of Jesus is offensive, therefore I cannot preach in the name of Jesus. I mean, we are truly living behind the iron curtain in China right now. But if you know my story, if you have Googled me up, you know I never had, and I will never submit myself into the wishes of a totalitarian regime. I have resisted them. I am resisting them. 350 citations so far, over 120 court cases, and many, many arrests.
That's amazing. So, like, what is it like coming from a socialist environment, communist environment, ending up in another communist environment? Is that shocking for you?
No. Let's go back a little bit. When we arrived here, it was still relatively okay. The government was preparing because what we witnessed in the past 4 years, they were working on this for decades. But when we arrived in 1985, it was still good. So what I did what I always wanted to do, Jesse, and I think every man, a normal man, a man after God's heart, wants to do, which is make a good living,
right.
Provide for a wife, build a house, and give something beautiful to the next generation. Something that I never had, pass it on to the children, and that's what I did. I worked very hard every day, and then shocker, when I started to work with the poor, the Canadian government started to implement all those absolute insane restrictions on our liberties. And of course, all of them, Jesse, are against the Constitution, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which, by the way, the preamble to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is the highest law, states, whereas Canada acknowledges the supremacy of God and the rule of law. Can you believe it? And all of that has been kicked out by woke, rogue psychopaths.
So are you surprised to see the Canadian people allowing this to happen in Canada and not really doing anything about it?
Well, I was, but I now are, living in that country for so long and traveling in the U.S. and in the West, I understand how they did it. They did it through the school system. They did it through indoctrination. They manipulated people into telling them that the government, no matter what the government says, and doesn't matter what those so-called servants of the people are doing or saying, they are right and you are wrong, that they actually mean well. Of course, if you know exactly what they're doing, you know that they're killing us by the 1,000 bylaws and by taxation. I remember studying history. I teach history as well. During the time of kings, if you raised your taxes over 10%, you had a revolt because people said, you're not God, only God takes 10%. Now Canadians are paying 55% in taxes, Jesse.
Amazing.
It's insanity. It's insanity. Yeah.
That's amazing, man. I know what you've gone through already, been arrested, and I saw you throw the police out of your church one day, like, get out of here, leave now, leave, go. You've gone to jail. Are you having an impact? Is it working? Is it changing for the good as a result of what you've done and what you're going through? Is it getting better or worse?
First of all, we have to understand that the truth, this whole thing from the very beginning to the very end is always about the same thing. It's about the truth. So what they wanted us to do by all those mandates and restrictions, they wanted to shut down or eliminate what God deems powerful. So they didn't allow us to congregate while the Bible says, do not forsake the gatherings of the saints. They wanted to restrict, and they said it's illegal to sing. God lives in the worship of his people. They told us we are not allowed to have Lord's Supper. We know that Jesus said, every time you gather, remember me, remember the suffering. So simply, I read the Bible and I started to implement in my life and in the life of the church and my friends, the Bible. And the government got scared. So because of it, because of the Get Out video that was watched over 1 billion times, Jesse, this was the #1 video on earth during that Passover weekend. A little guy, a little Polish immigrant with a broken English, Jesse, God has given me an opportunity to preach to hundreds of millions of people through all this period of time. I was on thousands of shows. I have done thousands of sermons. I was traveling around on a speaking tour. I wrote a book in prison, which is right now the #1, in a pre-order, a new coming book under the religious, statistics. And so because of this, because of the obedience to the word of God, because you got to remember, you have two choices. You can obey a rogue woke government that goes against the word of God, against the wishes of God, or you can submit yourself to God and follow his instructions. And sometimes the lawmakers or the law enforcers, if you will, or the politicians will go against God, and you have a choice. For example, when I'm being criticized from Romans 13 that we have to obey, all the authorities are from God, we have to obey everyone in uniform. No, that's not true. The question is, would you obey Adolf Hitler? Would you obey his Nazi party? Well, they told you legally. You got to remember, Adolf Hitler was democratically elected as the Chancellor of Germany in 1933. So the question is, would you obey Adolf Hitler and would you murder Jewish people? Because the government says so, right? It's absurd. Of course not. And the same way we have to look at what they're doing to us. If the law of man goes against the law of God, you must oppose it. You don't have a choice if you're real a man of God. If you're fake, if you're just a hired gun, if being a pastor or a clergy or a Christian is just a job for you, of course, no one wants to die for his job. But if this is your life, if Jesus is your life, if God is your life, then there is no question. So did I have an impact? Jesse, I led, I don't know how many people to the Lord to this day, 3 years later after that video. 3 years. Most people on earth forgot about this Get Out video. To this day, I got emails and people say to me, because of what you did, I am attending a church. Because of what you did, I'm a Christian right now. And I get this on a regular basis. I get it from atheists or former atheists, soldiers, medical profession, police officers, you name it. Muslims, Buddhists from around the world, people still remember, and they are sending me messages. And they said, because we watch you being arrested so many times, because we watch you, how you were willing to suffer and die if needs be for that, Jesus, it touched us hard, because if this Polish immigrant with the broken English can have such a faith, that God must be real, and they are believers.
Amazing. And so you were able to lead people to God, but your country, Canada, is still becoming a communist society, right? Even though people are turning to God, but it's still becoming a communist society.
It is communist right now. It is socialism. However, I don't know if you were paying attention to the truck convoy, which I was part of. Yeah. I was actually imprisoned for giving a sermon to the truckers and farmers during that time. I was charged with terrorism and I was convicted with terrorism for a sermon. During my sermon, 3 times I said to the Canadian people, peacefully, no guns and swords, do it the solidarity style, which is non-compliance, civil disobedience, just refuse to cooperate, and it's over for them. I said to the Canadian people, there is more of us than of them. If we unite, if we come together, and Jesse, this is what I saw during the truck convoy. I saw I saw every background, young, old, with families. They were bringing their cats and dogs, horses, feeding each other, loving with each other, crying with each other, hugging each other, singing with each other, having sermons. It was incredible. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen on the Canadian soil. And over 2 million Canadians took part of the Freedom Convoy, the truck convoy. So we are having impact. We already removed some of the key villains, if you will. We removed a premier that did this to us. Premier is like your governor. We removed a so-called minister of justice, minister of health, a chief health officer, like your Pinocchio, I call him, Fauci, the pathological liar. We removed those people from power. So we're working. People are being awakened. The more the totalitarian regime is squeezing us, the more people are breaking out.
Amazing. So I want to ask, and then I want to move on here. So now you're in America, you're doing a tour around America and talking about socialism and all that. What is the purpose of doing that in America?
Well,
Giving your talks in America.
It's huge because here's what God said to me when I was in prison still. He said to me, go to America and share your story and warn them. Because if Canada falls, they are next. Americans are next. So I boarded a plane with my son Nathaniel during the biggest lockdowns. No one was allowed to leave the country, but God made a way. And when I was in the plane, Jesse, he spoke to me. I asked him, what do you want me to say to the American people? And here is what he said to me. It was incredible. He said, tell this great American eagle that it's time for this eagle to rise up once again and start flapping its wings. I was shocked by what I heard. He calls you great American eagle. He says, you've done it before. It's time for Americans to do it again, come to the rescue, and you have to move. You cannot just sit on the fence, enjoy the view. You need it. You must do something. Everyone has to do something. Everyone has something that can contribute. So I say, answering your question, I'll say this. If United States of America goes down, so goes the free world. And we're going to have a civil war or some kind of a bloody uprising, which I never want to see.
Me either. Are you able to travel in and out of Canada without any problems? Is it hard to get in and out for you?
No, it used to be. When I was arrested by every force in the land, I was arrested by RCMP is like your FBI, detectives, Calgary police uniform, undercover. I was arrested by anti-terrorist special SWAT team. They blocked the whole neighborhood. It was truly a takedown of El Chapo of Calgary, Al Capone of Canada, Artur Pawlowski. So I spent time in prison, solitary confinement, metal cages. Jesse, they kept me in metal cages, no bigger than me sitting. I couldn't stretch. I was suffocating, passing out in and out. They kept me on concrete cells. They tortured me. They traveled. They took me from one place to another upside down. I'll have to do another show with you just to tell you what the Canadian government did to me. But when I was finally released, I was kidnapped by sheriffs. They tried to burn my house down with my children sleeping. They tried to burn our churches down. They managed to burn down our children's bus. They vandalized our church for 3 months every week. They stole our equipment, speakers, cameras, tens of thousands of dollars damages. I had Antifa in my house. They unscrewed tire of my pickup truck. They had knives and guns. I went through assassination attempts multiple times. When I was imprisoned, 5 different inmates already testified to our lawyers that the guards were giving them incentives to murder me in prison. So eventually, when I was released, so charged with terrorism, I was charged over 40 times during this crazy period, worth millions upon millions of dollars in fines. When I was finally released, I was placed on house arrest. So I spent 1.5 years, Jesse, for giving a message of hope. I want the people to understand my whole crime, over 350 tickets overall, it's all about me doing my job as a pastor, preaching, giving hope, telling people the truth, feeding the poor, organizing events. I was charged, Jesse, criminally for inciting people to come to church. Can you believe it? Inciting people. I'm a pastor. That's what I do for a living. I incite people to come to church.
Right.
I was charged criminally for officiating an illegal gathering, participating in illegal gathering. So finally, when I was released, I couldn't travel. But now, since I was convicted, like your rightful president of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, I believe he won that election 100%. He is a convicted felon as well, and Artur Pawlowski is a convicted felon as well. And by the miracle of God, he keeps sending me to your beautiful country, and he is telling me, keep going, I'll open the door for you, and keep sharing.
Would you ever live in America?
Pardon me?
Will you ever live here in America?
No, I was offered to move to America. I was offered all kinds of different things. I was offered to pastor a big church, and God said no. He called me to Canada, and he said, you will be in and out. You will be in and out. You will live in Canada. That's where my children are. I got 3 children. That's where my house is. That's where my wife is, the church and the mission. But he sends me every month. I'm in your country. So I by heart, I am an American. Either you like it or not. I have adopted myself.
Right on. And so your wife, how does she handle all of this? I mean, how did she handle what you've gone through already? How did she, what was her reaction when you were locked up and all the stuff you gone through?
I listened to one of her interviews, and I was fascinated by what she was saying, because I didn't look at this from that perspective. But she says, Jesse, you were on the inside, imprisoned and tortured, but we were also imprisoned and tortured on the outside. Yeah. So what my wife did with my children, with my church, with my family, my brother David was arrested with me, Jesse, 12 times. My own brother, my younger baby brother David, was arrested for what we do with me 12 times. My oldest son Nathaniel was already arrested 5 times. His crime was, when I was on the house arrest, I received an invitation to testify before the European Parliament about my treatment. I couldn't go. Canadian government said, no, you're not allowed to leave the country. So my wife and my son went over there, and he testified. He did such an amazing job that upon arrival, he was immediately arrested by the Canadian authorities. And that already happened 5 times. Whoa. So when I was on the inside, they organized the longest ongoing protest in the history of prison in Canada. For every day I was locked on the inside, they had a church service on the outside. So my family is amazing. They're amazing people. They're courageous people. We are doing this together. We are in it together. It's not like I go off to war and my wife, doesn't care, or she doesn't suffer, or she doesn't pay the price. We as a family, we are doing this together. So sometimes when I'm traveling, she has to stay behind. She is in charge of cooking for the poor and organizing the food ministry and, taking care of the kids and the house. I mean, we can't all go. Right. Someone has to stay behind. And my wife has decided to do that role. And most of the time she stays behind, but she's coming and joining me on Thursday for just a few days here in my last leg of the tour. I was able to share in a Republican Party in Manhattan, New York, multiple events. I was in Washington State just yesterday, multiple meetings, and now I am in Virginia. And Thursday I will be in North Carolina. I'll spend a few days over there. And on Monday, I was invited by your president, Donald J. Trump, to pray for him. So if you can pray for me, that I can be able to pray for the president with the right words and with the power from above, that would be great.
Right on.